Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the Wealthy Trustee webinar. I'm super excited that you guys are here this evening. So I do have a lot planned for you for tonight. So tonight we are going to be learning about how to set up a trust fund. So you're going to learn the right steps that you need to take in order to create the trust and how to build wealth the right way with trust, as well as how to protect your assets. So, without further ado, I hope all of you guys are doing well. My name is Christina Yvette. I am the founder of 7 Ways to Wealth, which is a financial literacy company. So, the way that I got into trusteeship was I have been a trustee for almost 11 years. So, this year, in I think September, is going to be my 11th year operating as a trustee. So, what I'm going to be teaching you this evening is from a point of view of trusteeship. So, I am not an attorney, I am not a CPA. So, I'm going to teach you from a standpoint of me being a fiduciary and operating a trust for over a decade. Okay. So, the way that I got into trusteeship was through real estate. The way that I got into real estate was through nursing. So my career was in nursing, and I was a nurse for 8 years. And when I was a nurse, I was living a paycheck to paycheck. I was literally in the rat race, and I was super frustrated because when I started my nursing career, I started at a hospital that was short-staffed. So you can only imagine me being, 24 years old. I am working 5, 6 hours, 6 days a week and working 12-hour shifts. So at that time, I had a son that was 1 years old, and I was so frustrated because I was spending more time in the hospital than I was at home with my 1 year old. And when I realized that, I told myself, I said, I need another stream of income. I need to be able to make money another way outside of the hospital. I cannot depend on my paycheck here in the hospital because it's taking away a lot of my time and I can't even raise my son, right? My son, he was being raised by my mom, and it was just very frustrating for me. And so, sometimes when you're pretty much at that point where you are at rock bottom and there's nowhere else to go but up, that you're like thinking, I need a breakthrough, right? And so one day I was driving to work, and this guy, his name is Dan Merrill, he is a real estate investor and a mentor. He says on a radio ad, do you want to learn how to flip houses? And I said, yeah, right. I'm driving to work and I'm like, yeah, I want to learn how to flip houses. And so he's like, come to my 3 day seminar this weekend. I signed up for the seminar, $200, spent 3 entire days there learning about real estate. And I fell in love with real estate. And I learned so much about real estate in those 3 days than I have known in my entire life. So that sparked a fire inside of me that within 6 months of me having that seminar, I started my real estate investment company, my LLC, and I bought my first property. And this property was a little 2 bedroom, 1 bath house in North Miami Beach. I bought the property for $89,000 and I ended up selling it for $235,000. So I made 6 figures off of one little tiny beat up 2 bedroom house. When I realized that, I knew that I did not have to depend on my hospital paycheck. I knew that I was going to become financially free. I knew that I was going to have an opportunity to have a second stream of income. But before I sold the property, before I even renovated the property, I had a mentor. And my mentor told me, Christina, you need to put that property into a trust. And at that time, I was 25 years old. And I was like, what is a trust? I don't even know what a trust is, right? My mentor, he's twice my age. He's in his 50s. He has $200 million worth of real estate asset. All of his assets are in a trust. He was my hard money lender. So he's the one who lent me the $89,000 to purchase the property. So I'm like, okay, he knows what he's talking about. So he showed me the steps for me to set up my trust. I set up my trust. I transferred that property from the LLC into the trust, and I have been operating within trust ever since. So I've been operating as a trustee since 2015. So what I'm going to teach you tonight is the steps that you need to take, right? You also are going to have a mindset shift for you to think a little bit differently. That's what happened to me when I was 25 years old. I had that mindset shift to where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to depend on my paycheck anymore. I'm going to acquire assets. I'm going to have a business. I'm going to retire myself, right? And so that's what it takes sometimes, okay? So I have a short presentation for you guys. And after the presentation, I will answer any questions that you have. We are going to go in depth. So there is going to be a lot of information that I'm going to be sharing. So please ask me any questions that you might have at the end of the webinar, okay? So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Give me one moment. All right, there we go. So the first thing that I want to teach you guys is what is a trust entity, okay? So a lot of you guys have heard the term trust, right? But you don't know what it is. And what I want to tell you is that a trust is an entity. It is a living, breathing entity just like you. So you are a living, breathing entity. The way you operate in society is you operate with your name and your social security, right? A trust is a living, breathing entity. The way that the trust operates in society is through its name, and it has an equivalent to a social security, which is called an EIN. So the way that this entity comes into existence is through a contract. So you have to create a contract in order for the entity to then be coming into existence, right? So let's talk about this contract, right? So this is what we call a contractual entity. And with the contract, there are several different sections to the contract. I won't be able to cover all those sections this evening, but the section that I want you to know is the declaration. Inside of the declaration, that is where you're declaring what you're setting up in this contract. So you're declaring that I am setting up a trust in this contract. So this is a contract by trust, and that I am not setting up any other type of entity like a partnership or a joint venture or a limited liability company or a corporation. So I'm not setting up those things, but I'm setting up a trust, okay? So now that we know that it is a contract, the other thing that you need to know is that there's several parties to this contract, right? So the parties in this contract, one is a grantor, right? And so the grantor is the creator of the trust. That is the individual who is going to create the trust for the benefit of somebody else. That somebody else is the beneficiary, okay? Now, when you do your research about trust, you might hear the term settlor or trustor. So just keep that in mind, because I am going to tell you that I want you to do your due diligence after this webinar so that you can tie in all of the puzzle pieces, okay? So the grantor is initially going to place the first asset into the trust. The second party involved is the trustee. The trustee is the fiduciary of the trust. So they are going to be controlling the trust, meaning the assets that are inside of the trust, the funds that are inside of the trust. They're going to operate the trust, and they're going to carry out all of the terms and conditions that are set inside of the contract. They're going to be doing that on behalf of the beneficiaries, right? So the third party involved is the beneficiaries. Those are the individuals that are the inheritors of the trust. So they are going to be receiving gifts from the trust. They're going to be receiving distributions from the trust. And ultimately, when the trust is terminated, then they're going to receive the assets that are placed inside of the trust. So whatever assets that the trust owns, those assets will then be transferred to the beneficiaries. So now that we know that it is a contract and there's several different parties, let's talk about the different types of trust. What I need you to know is that there's several different types of trust. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a set of categories that each trust falls under, okay? So that you can better be informed about the type of trust that you want to operate. So let's get started with the first category, which is express versus implied. An express trust is a written trust, okay? So that means that there was a verbal agreement that happened between the grantor and the first trustee, and they expressed it into a contract. So that means that it's on paper, it's on black and white, you can physically touch it. Versus the other type of trust, which is a verbal trust, right? So it is an oral trust where that verbal agreement was never expressed, meaning that it never went into writing, okay? It just always stayed verbal, all right? So that is what we call an implied trust. Now, the second category that I want to give you is simple versus complex. A simple trust is shorter in nature. That means that there are less provisions and there are less bylaws in there. And with a simple trust, what happens is the trustee is required to distribute 100% of the money. So that means that they cannot hold trust funds in a simple trust, okay? Versus a complex trust. So a complex trust, meaning that it is longer in nature, so there are more provisions, there are more terms and conditions, there are more bylaws inside of a complex trust. Because it's complex, in nature, that means that the trustee can actually house trust funds inside of a complex trust. So all of those funds do not need to be distributed to the beneficiaries, which is good because what you need sometimes is funds for operation, right? And maintenance and administration. So let me give you the next category. So the next category is discretionary versus non-discretionary. So a discretionary trust is where the trustee is able to make full decisions for the trust without those actual provisions being inside of the actual contract, right? So for example, if the trustee wanted to invest in crypto, but there's no mention of crypto inside of the contract because it's discretionary, the trustee is able to do that. Versus non-discretionary means that the trustee is not able to make decisions on behalf of the trust if it's not inside of the physical contract. So there are some limitations to what with a non-discretionary trust. Now, the next category that I want to give you is statutory versus non-statutory. So every single state has their own statutes and codes. Those statutes and codes are laws. And with a statutory trust, that means that the state statutes and codes are embedded inside of the contract, which means that that particular trust is restricted to where it can only be operated in that one state where it has been set up. And it has to be registered with the public records, which means that everyone is going to know what's inside of the trust and the existence of the trust and the net worth of the trust, right? Versus the other type of trust, right, which is non-statutory. So a non-statutory trust means that there are no state statutes and codes embedded inside of the contract, which means that there's flexibility with that type of trust because that type of trust is not limited to the state where it was established. So that means that you can use it in the entire nation, meaning all 50 states plus all of the US territories. So you can use it pretty much anywhere, which is extremely powerful for a trust to have no types of limitations when it comes to the state or jurisdiction. So the last category that I want to give you is revocable versus irrevocable. So a revocable trust, and when we are referring to revocable and irrevocable, what we are referring to is the capacity of the grantor. So the grantor has either revocability or irrevocability. So what we're saying with a revocable trust is that the grantor is able to make changes to the trust, so they can make amendments, right? They are able to terminate the trust at any point in time. They are able to place assets in the trust and take them back. They're able to remove the trustees and the beneficiaries. And typically with a revocable trust, the grantor is going to serve as all three parties. which means that the grantor is not only going to be the grantor, but also the trustee and the beneficiary. So because the grantor serves in all three of those categories, that type of trust is actually seen as their alter ego. So that type of trust is seen as a version of them, which means that it's not going to operate with a separate 9-digit number. It's actually going to operate under that grantor Social Security, which is unfortunate because if anyone is coming after that grantor, meaning any creditors, then they can come after the trust. So they can penetrate through the trust, and that means that your assets inside of a revocable trust are not protected, right? And that is not what you want. You want your assets to be fully protected, because with a revocable trust, if it was to end up in litigation, then the judge will pierce through an irrevocable trust, pierce through a revocable trust. And if the judge pierces through a revocable trust, then what happens is they're going to force the grantor to bring the trust to court. And then the trust is going to automatically become a part of the public records. And so they're going to know the contents of the trust, who the beneficiaries are, the net worth of the trust, and the assets that are inside of the trust, which is detrimental to the trust, right? Versus the other category, which is an irrevocable trust. So an irrevocable trust is where the grantor has irrevocability. So that means that they have no power and no control. So they are unable to terminate the trust. They're unable to make any changes for the trust. They are unable to remove the trustees and beneficiaries. Also, if they were to place assets into the trust, they cannot take those assets back, right? So they are also unable to serve as the trustee and the beneficiary. So that means that there has to be separate individuals in those capacities. So the grantor cannot be the beneficiary or the trustee, which is powerful, right? Because now this type of entity is seen as a separate entity, right? So it's not seen as an extension of them, it's seen as a separate entity, which means that if creditors are coming after the grantor, the trustee, they cannot come after the trust because they are not the trust is not them. The trust is a separate entity that operates with its name and its EIN number. Now, if this type of trust was to end up in litigation, what would happen is the judge would not pierce through an irrevocable trust, which means that your assets are going to be fully protected from any claims against that type of entity, which is powerful. So now that I've given you a list of different categories that every single trust falls under, I want to tell you how to actually create a trust, right? So step one is for you to determine the type of trust that you want to create. I gave you a lot of different categories. Now, every single trust is going to fall within those categories. So if you want to create a trust that is truly bulletproof, that's not going to be penetrated through the court system, and that your assets are going to be fully protected, then you want a trust that is going to fall under the following categories. So the first thing is that that trust needs to be expressed. So it needs to be in writing. The second thing is that that trust needs to be complex in nature so that trust funds can be held inside of the trust. The third thing is that that trust needs to be discretionary so that you're able to make decisions outside of what's in the contract. The fourth thing is that that trust needs to be non-statutory, which means that you can operate it in the entire US plus all of the territories. And lastly, that trust needs to be irrevocable in nature so that it is seen as a separate entity from you and that your assets are fully protected, okay? So once again, do your due diligence and your research so that you can determine the best type of trust for you and your family and your business. Now, step two is for you to determine the type of name that you're going to use for the trust, right? So one thing that I want you to know is that the word trust doesn't have to be in the name. The second thing that I want you to know is that I don't want you to make the common mistake that most people make, which is naming the trust after themselves. Remember that this trust is for privacy purposes. So you do not want the trust to be named after you, and then someone who is trying to come after you or your assets automatically is able to connect the dots and know that you're associated with that trust, okay? So don't make that mistake. The next thing is that you're going to appoint the different parties involved in the contract. So you're going to have a grantor. So it depends on if it's revocable or irrevocable, if you're going to be the grantor or not. The second thing is that you're going to have a trustee. So if you want to have full power and control, you're going to nominate yourself as the trustee so that you're able to still control the assets and the funds that are inside of the trust. Then you're going to have beneficiaries. So those beneficiaries are going to be your children or your next of kin. And lastly, you are going to appoint a successor. So that is a successor trustee, which is an individual who's going to take over after you in the event that something happens to you. Meaning that if, for example, you become incapacitated, or if you transition and expire, or if you decide, hey, I'm going to resign and I don't want to operate the trust anymore. So you need to have someone who's readily available. So they have to be at least 18 years or older. They have to be readily available to take over and continue the trust wherever you left off, okay? Now, the next thing is you need to actually create the trust agreement. Remember, it's a contract, and in the contract, you have to set forth the bylaws, which are the terms and conditions of how you want this trust to be operated, right? So you have to actually create all of those provisions. One of the provisions that is a must in your trust are what we call spendthrift provisions. So spendthrift provisions are when you have spendthrifts. Those spendthrifts are beneficiaries that actually want to spend all the money that's inside of the trust, right? And it's highly likely that they want to do this because they didn't create the wealth. They didn't create the money, but they want to spend it, okay? So you need to be able to put provisions in place in order to preserve the money, okay? So with that being said, we put spendthrift provisions like an age restriction, right? So we are going to make sure that they are reaching a level of maturity. So let's just say that we put an age restriction to where they have to be 25 before they can access distributions, right? Another thing that we do is we put a distribution restriction on what they can spend the money on. So now you are putting yourself in a position to where you're controlling the money from the grave, which is what you want to do. You're the one that created the money. So you need to be able to control that money decades after you have transitioned. So what you're going to do is you're going to limit and put a requirement on what they can spend the money on. Things like real estate or stocks and bonds or a business or education or, anything, right? Insurance policies, whatever it is. And you can also restrict what they cannot spend the money on. For example, they can't spend the money on illicit drugs. They can't spend it on gambling or lottery tickets, right? So you want to put those spendthrift provisions so that you can ensure that the money is going to be preserved and actually reach the next generation. Now let's move on to number 4, where we're going to be talking about the trust getting legalized. So what needs to happen is the trust is going to get notarized by a notary public, and that person is going to be the witness, and they're going to place their seal on the contract, and they're going to witness 2 signatures. They're going to witness the signature of the grantor as well as the signature of the trustee, okay? And after they have witnessed and placed their seal, the trust is now legalized and you're able to operate it. So the first thing that you're going to do after your trust is legalized is you're going to fund the trust. So you're going to fund it with whatever amount of money that you want to fund it. The minimum is $1, okay? Because that is what we call intrinsic value. So now that you've decided to fund the trust, what you want to do is you want to be able to establish a relationship with a financial institution so that you can actually house those trust funds, okay? So when you hear the term trust fund, we're actually talking about the bank account where the funds are held, okay? So let's say that with a trust, right, you can open up either a checking account, a savings account, you can open up a money market account, and what we call a cash management account. So with that being said, the type of banks that you can go to is you can go to a traditional bank, right? So you can go to either national or regional banks, you can go to your local bank, you can go to a credit union, and you can go to a brokerage. So not every single bank offers trust accounts. So you have to do your research and choose the bank that actually offers trust accounts, okay? So now that you have decided to establish a banking relationship with a financial institution, right, and you are going to open up this bank account, there's two things that you have to bring with you. The first thing is your certificate of trust. That is proof of identity that the trust exists, okay? So just like how you walk around with a state ID, the trust also needs to have identification, and that is what we call a certificate of trust. The second thing that you're going to bring with you is your EIN number that's issued by the IRS. So EIN stands for Employer Identification Number. That's a 9-digit number, very similar to a Social Security number. So with that number, that is how you are going to be able to open up a bank account, because it is highly unlikely that you're able to open up a bank account for a trust without an EIN. So now that you have those two things, then you're going to fund the trust, right? So they've opened up your trust fund account. Now you need to fund it with whatever desired amount that you want, or whatever the bank's minimum is. So some of these banks, their minimums vary. Some of them, their minimum is $100. Some are 500, some are 1,000, some are even upwards of 5,000, which are usually the brokerage accounts like Vanguard, right? So with that being said, once you have funded the account, now you're at the position to where you can then transfer assets into the account. So, well, not to the account, but to the trust. So this is actually the most important step. And this is where I see people make the biggest mistake. The reason why they make this mistake is, one, because when you are transferring assets into a trust, right, there's two things that you have to do. The first thing that you have to do is you have to list it inside of the trust indenture. Okay, so so for example, let's just say that we are putting our house, right? Our house, our primary residence, we're putting it into the trust. So we're going to list that house in one of the schedules in the trust indenture. But remember, when you purchased that house, you were given a deed. And so what you have to do is you have to legally transfer that property into the trust, right? And this is the mistake that people make, and I always see them drop the ball. So with that property, you have to redeed it into the trust. So out of your personal name into the trust, then you're going to record it with the county recorder's office. The county is then going to update the public records to show that the trust is the new owner of that property and that you no longer own that property. But this is where people make the biggest mistake, because they think that it's sufficient enough just to list it in the trust. No. Remember, you have to do it legally with the county and with the state. So do not make that mistake. Let's continue on. So when it comes to an actual trust, right? A trust can protect you from many things, but here is a few things just for you to be aware of, okay? So a trust can protect you from bankruptcy, from divorce, from foreclosures, from heavy taxations, from lawsuits, as well as probate. So let's just talk about a few of them. So the first one that I want to mention is divorce, right? So when it comes to a divorce, unfortunately, sometimes one spouse will end up with nothing and the other spouse will end up with everything, right? And so the way that that transpires is because they are going through the court system, and with a divorce, you have to disclose all of your assets and all of your liabilities, meaning all of your debt, like your credit cards, as well as all of your assets, like all of the property, your 401k, your pension, everything, right? And then you're battling back and forth, and they decide who gets what. Now, the beautiful thing about a trust is that you are not the trust is not you. So if you have a trust, and let's just say that you have a house in there, you have $100,000 in there, you have a car in there, that trust cannot be pulled into your divorce. Why? Because you're the one that's getting a divorce, not the trust. The trust is not getting a divorce. And remember, if it is an irrevocable trust, that means that that is a separate entity from you. So that is a beautiful thing, and you want to be able to protect yourself from situations like this. The next thing is heavy taxation, right? A lot of us, we are giving away half of our income to the government, right? especially in states like California and New York. So what we need to do is remember that we are able to put ourselves in a position to where we can reduce our taxes. And the IRS allows us to do that legally. So with the IRS, right, they will allow you to donate up to 60% of your annual gross income to your trust, which is powerful because if you do that, then what happens is you are now going to be taxed on 40% of your income versus 100 because 60% of it was donated to your trust. Right. So you need to put yourselves in positions like that because that's going to help you reduce your taxes to where you can then allocate that money somewhere else. And that somewhere else is assets, right? So the next one is lawsuits, right? So let me talk to you about lawsuits because unfortunately we live in the United States of America. And in the United States of America, this is a very sue-friendly country if you didn't know, right? And so that means that everyone wants to sue you, meaning your neighbor wants to sue you, your sibling wants to sue you, your parents want to sue you, your employer, your employee, your clients, your customers, everybody wants to sue you, okay? So you do not want to wait until you're getting sued in order for you to protect yourself from a lawsuit, okay? So a trust is able to protect you from that. Now, let's just say that you are an entrepreneur. Do I have any entrepreneurs in here? Do I have any business owners in here? You guys can come off mute. Let's have a quick little dialect. Let's talk really quickly. So come off mute. Let me know if you guys run a business, if you have a corporation, if you have an LLC.
No,
Hi, this
see,
is Don. I'm sorry.
Say
Yeah,
that.
this is Don Busby. Hi, Christina. Appreciate this.
Hi.
Yeah, I am a sole proprietor. I have never and I was told this years ago to I should have had set up an LLC, but I didn't. So I am a sole proprietor for my business.
Okay, yes. So you have no type of protection. All right. So if you would have set up an LLC, do you know what LLC stands for?
Yes, I do.
What does it stand for?
Limited liability company.
It does. Okay, so now I have a question for you, Don. So if the company has limited liability, because we hear it in the word, right? LLC, limited liability. If the company has limited liability, who do you think has the other half of that liability?
I would.
Yes. Do you want to be liable for what happens to the company?
No, not at
All
all.
right.
Not at all.
All
I know.
right.
I know. I know, Christina. Yes, that's why I said. I know I know I've been schooled on this plenty of times. So yes, I understand where you're going and I understand what you're talking about. Yes.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. So, if your clients or your customers one day decide that they want to sue you, right? And it is so easy for them to find out who the owner of the company is because everything's a part of the public records and it's on the Secretary of State's website. Because when you go to create your business, right, you have to go to the Secretary of State in order to do that. And you're putting all of your personal information there as the owner of that business. So they just go to the Secretary of State, then they're able to put in your business name and they're able to find out who owns the business. So now they know who they have to go after, right? And so let's just say that they do decide to go forward with suing your LLC, right? And if your LLC ends up with a judgment, right? What happens is they're going to go after the LLC. So let's just say you have a judgment for $200,000, right? So if that happens, they're going to go after the LLC. But let's just say that the LLC doesn't have assets or cash to cover that judgment. What's going to happen is the judge can potentially pierce through the corporate veil. The corporate veil is the limited liability protection that you thought that you had. So if they pierce through the corporate veil, right, that little bit of coverage, that tiny umbrella, then they're going to go after you, the owner. And if they go after you, the owner, then what's going to happen is they're able to garnish your entire bank account. They're able to garnish all of your wages and they're able to seize all of your assets or whatever assets that they need to seize and liquidate in order to cover the judgment. So now you're at a point where you are at risk of losing it all, and you're at the point where it's very detrimental for your livelihood and even your family. So you do not want to wait until you're getting sued to protect yourself. You want to protect yourself now while there is no fire and no heat happening, right? So a trust can actually protect you. And the way that the trust can protect you from a lawsuit is, for example, with this example, right? With a business like an LLC or even a corporation, right? Instead of you being the owner of that LLC and taking on that liability, you can have a trust be the owner of that LLC. And now you're going to have a layer of protection between you and the LLC. So I'm going to say this again. You do not want to be the owner of your business. Okay, you need to remove yourself as the owner. You need to add the trust as the owner, because now if somebody tries to go after your LLC, the trust has 100% liability, which means that if they try to sue your LLC and come after it and the LLC is not able to fulfill the judgment, then their first defense is that they're going to go after the trust. And this trust is operated like a holding company, so it doesn't have any cash or anything, right? And so it's going to protect you personally, which is what you want, because they're not able to come after you. Okay, so that is how a trust can actually protect you from any form of a lawsuit. So now we're going to dive right back in. Hold on, let me get my slides here.
Just a quick story of why
Hold on a second. So this is a quick little video of, hold on 1 second.
Just a quick story of why I'm here. I was sued. I lost everything. And when I say everything, I'm talking about a $700,000 house. I'm talking about 4 vehicles. I'm talking about my bank account. I'm talking about my life savings. I believed in having 6 months of expenses put up, saved up just in case anything happened, lost a career and stuff like that. All of that was gone. And there was no protection for me. Then I had my third bout with cancer. I haven't had any income since 2020, since COVID. As I told you, I think yesterday, I've been looking for a way to protect myself because I have children that are going to depend on me. So I would encourage anyone that would listen to anything that has been taught and said by you, please, 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 if you work hard to gain assets, do whatever you can do to protect your assets. Why do you think they've hid this from us for so long? Why do you think they were the only ones that were saying trust fund babies? It was because they were the only ones who were privileged to know this, who was privy to this knowledge. Now we have it through Christina. And I thank you for your level of knowledge and for not being a gatekeeper and for giving us what we need to know in order to make this happen. So please, 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 if you endeavor to get anything in this world and to keep anything in this world, please, please, please protect it. Get your trusts. And I have no reason other than my knowledge and what I've been through. But the only reason I'm here is because I've been through it. So I would encourage anyone.
All right, so once again, do not wait until you're getting sued. So I have another question for you guys, right? Now, a lot of us, our number one investment or our biggest asset is our primary residence, right? It's our house. So my question to you is, if this house is in your personal name, and let's just say that you didn't wake up tomorrow, how do you expect this house to be transferred to your son or your daughter? So somebody come off mute, let me know. What do you guys think? How is this house going to be transferred to your son or your daughter if it's in your personal name and you didn't wake up?
Revocable living trust.
Through probate.
Probate, exactly. Okay, Natalia, yes. So basically, she is saying through the court system, right? So unfortunately, our children are going to have to go to court in order to get our assets because all of our assets are in our personal name. Why? Because we believed in the lie that society told us where we're thinking that our children automatically get our house, our children automatically get our car, our children automatically get the money that we have in our bank account, right? That is a misconception. And I'm here to tell you that your children are losing their inheritance. I have seen it so many times. It even happened to my neighbor, right? Where my neighbor, her mom had a stroke and my parents found her outside on the sidewalk in the ground. Her mom never recovered and she was the only daughter, but she didn't even know that her mom had an estranged husband that they never got a divorce. So there was this big fight and the daughter never got the house, right? And so unfortunately, we are putting our children in these positions where we know that we want them to receive their inheritance, where we know that we want them to receive our house, but we're doing a disservice because we never prepared them. We think that it's good enough for us to have a will, but I'm here to tell you that a will is not good enough. A will is a wish list. A will is your last will and testament where you're saying, I wish my daughter will get my house. I wish my son will get my house. That is literally what you are wishing with a wish list with which is the will. The reason being is because a will is a set of legal instructions that is designed to be carried out in probate. So you're pretty much setting them up for failure because you're literally telling them you're going to probate automatically, right? A will is not an entity. A will cannot own anything. But I'm here to tell you that a trust can, that a trust is an entity, that a trust can own assets. Okay. So a trust is superior to a will. Everything that you would put in a will, meaning all of your desires, all of those provisions, you can put them into your trust and your will become obsolete, right? Which is what you want. Why? Because you do not want your family to end up in probate, right? Because at that point in time, what you're doing is you're saying that you're leaving the decision up to a judge. This judge does not know you. This judge does not know your son or your daughter. But because you decided not to get your affairs in order, because you decided not to create your living estate now while you were living, you're going to leave it up to a judge. So let me explain to you what the probate process looks like, okay? So in the event that you have, let's just say you have a will, and let's just say you have assets like a house, a car, and let's just say $500,000 in the bank, right? You have these assets, right? And these assets are in your personal name and you didn't wake up tomorrow. The first thing that occurs is the state where you're a resident, they have to create an estate for you. Why? Because you were irresponsible and you didn't do it yourself. So now the state of Texas, the state of California, the state of Florida, they have to create a living estate for you on your behalf. And then they're going to transfer the assets that you have in your personal name. They're going to transfer it into the estate. Now the estate has to go into probate, which is family court. So now that it is in probate, what happens is it needs to be represented by a probate attorney. And it's going to be in the probate court system. And the first thing that the judge is going to do is pay off your liabilities. So whatever your liabilities are, what's going to happen is they're going to start taking from your estate, right? So whatever cash money that you had left over in your checking account. So liabilities are things like your credit card debt, your student loan debt, right? What if you had personal loans, if you had mortgages, if you had let's just say car loans, whatever kind of liabilities. You also have creditors that are coming out of nowhere to go after your estate. And one thing that a lot of us don't think about that I'm here to share with you is the type of medical bills that we're going to have at the end of life. So you do not know how much medical bills you're going to rack up at the end. You could have been sitting in the ICU for a week and now your ICU bill is $450,000. You could have been in a nursing home, a rehabilitation center, or anywhere, right? And so a lot of us people, a lot of us, we think, oh, well, I have insurance, right? Well, guess what? The insurance, they want to be reimbursed, right? Medicare, Medicaid, they are going to go after your estate. Why? Because those are government agencies and they want to be reimbursed. So you're going to have a lot of medical bills at the end of life that is not even in the forefront of your thought process, right? So I need you to think about that because the judge is going to pay off those liabilities. And if you don't have enough cash in order for those liabilities to be covered, then what the judge is going to automatically do is liquidate your assets. So now you have your son and your daughter that are fighting. So sometimes they fight each other, unfortunately, but majority of the time they're fighting the court system to keep mom's house, to keep dad's house, right? And so I'm here to tell you that you will be doing your children a disservice if you allow them to go through the probate process. Because you have to understand what's transpiring during this time, right? They just lost the most important person in their entire life. I know because I lost my mom. So you, instead of them grieving, you're going to be pulling them into the court system for them to be fighting. You don't want that to happen. So we're all going to end up in probate. It's inevitable. The only way for you to avoid probate is by having a trust. There is no other way for you to avoid probate. So now let me explain to you what this process looks like if you decided, well, I'm going to get my affairs in order. If you decided, well, I'm going to create my trust now while I'm living. If you decided, well, I'm deciding to protect my assets, right? So let's just say that you decided to set up a trust. And so now that you have this trust, you transferred your house into the trust, you transferred your car into the trust, and you opened up a trust fund account and you transferred that $500,000 into the trust, right? And you didn't wake up tomorrow. Well, you have a successor trustee that automatically is going to pick up where you left off. So everything is going to remain intact. Why? Because you're the one that transitioned, not the trust. The trust still exists. And the trust, the way you set it up, you designed it for it to live for 100 years. So it's going to be fully functional for the next 100 years. And your children are the beneficiaries. So they're going to be able to receive benefits from this trust, meaning that they're going to receive money and gifts. And once this trust is dissolved, they're going to receive those assets tax-free, right? So that is the process that you just set up, right? And so what happens is because the successor picks up where you left off, your children get to grieve in peace. They get to avoid the entire probate process. And that debt that you had, all of that debt dies with you. Why? Because those creditors have nothing to go after. Because when you transition with no assets in your name. So those creditors have to discharge the debt, which is a beautiful process because now your children receive their entire inheritance. And last time I checked, we worked so hard to pay off our house. We worked so hard to have a little savings account, right? And we know that we want our children to receive these assets. So they're going to receive the assets as long as you have them protected in a trust estate, okay? So with that being said, let's continue on. I'm going to dive right back into my slides here. 1 second, let me find it. Okay. All right, so now we have the wealth building formula. The wealth building formula, this is the formula that I used in order to build wealth. This is the formula that you want to use if you are intentional about building wealth the right way so that your assets are protected. So we have 3 pillars here. The first one is structure, the second one is credit, the third one is invest. So let's focus on structure right now. So you need to have a for-profit and a nonprofit within your structure, and you need to have a trust within your structure. But you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket, which means that you don't want to put all of your assets in one trust, okay? So what you want to do is you want to put yourself in a position to where you have multiple trusts within your structure, okay? So the trusts that I recommend are a business trust for our entrepreneurs and business owners, a private family trust for all of your personal assets, and a tax-exempt nonprofit trust, okay? Remember, you need to have a for-profit and a nonprofit. So let's break it down. The first trust that we're going to talk about is the business trust. Remember, in a few slides previously, I gave you the example about an LLC needing to be owned by a trust. The type of trust that is going to own that LLC or that corporation is going to be a business trust. Why? Because this type of trust is designed to manage other entities, right? To manage and control other legal entities like LLCs and corporations. Now, with this type of trust, you can actually operate it in 2 different ways. The first way is you can operate it as a holding company to where it holds the LLC. The second way is you can operate it like a traditional business. So let's just say that you didn't want to set up an LLC. You don't have to. You can just set up a business trust and operate your traditional business through that entity, okay? So let's just say that you decided to operate this business trust like a holding company, right? And so what needs to happen is you need to do an amendment to the articles of organization for your LLC. You need to remove yourself as the authorized member or manager of the LLC, and then you need to add the business trust. And then that amendment is going to be processed through the Secretary of State, and they're going to update the public records to show that the new owner of the business is a entity, and it's going to be that business trust. So now what's going to happen is the funds that are generated from that LLC can be distributed to the business trust. So let's just say that your LLC generated $100,000. That whole $100,000 can go into the business trust. And now with the business trust, right, one thing about this trust that I absolutely love is that you're going to spend the money first and then you're going to be taxed on the leftovers, right? And the tax rate for a business trust is anywhere between 10% upwards of 37%. So what transpires is that we're going to put ourselves in a position to where we're going to spend the money first. So what does that look like, right? Well, what does it cost in order for you to actually run your business? Well, let's say that, you know, you have operating expenses, you have maintenance, you have administrative expenses, all of those things we, you know, call them OPEX, right? And so you get to deduct those expenses, right? And so that's what we're doing. We're spending the money first with our expenses, and then whatever's left over is what we're going to be taxed on. So out of that 100,000, let's just say that your OPEX is 30% or $30,000, right? So now you just did a tax deduction of 30,000. You have $70,000 that's left. So you're going to pay taxes on the $70,000. But the second beautiful thing that I absolutely love about a trust is that you have a beneficiary and that you get to do a distribution. So trusts get to do distributions to their beneficiaries, okay? So for example, if you keep the money in the trust, then the trust has to pay taxes. If you distribute the money to the beneficiary, then that whole distribution is tax deductible and you don't have to pay taxes on it, but the beneficiary has to pay taxes on it. So the way that we structure our system is we make the beneficiary of the business trust the private family trust. The reason that we do that is because we are making the money with the business, but we need that money in order to support our family. So that money needs to be able to flow from the business trust to the family trust. And we're going to do that through a distribution. So remember, we have $70,000 that needs to be distributed. It's going to be distributed to the beneficiary, which is the family trust. So now at the business trust level, we had $100,000 that came in, $30,000 was spent on operating expenses and deducted, and then $70,000 was distributed to the beneficiary. So now we have $0 that's left, which means that we're taxed on $0. So we pay 0% in taxes, okay? So now we're all done with the business trust. Let's move on to the family trust. So with the family trust, this is also a for-profit entity, right? You are going to put yourself in a position to where you are going to spend the money first and you're going to be taxed on the leftovers. And with this type of trust, this is for all of our personal assets that has nothing to do with business. The business trust is for business assets like LLCs and corporations, equipment, things of that nature, right? So with the family trust, everything that's in your personal name is going to go into the family trust, like your primary residence, maybe your vehicle, your insurance policies, your jewelry, your art, stocks, bonds, things of that nature, crypto. So you're going to put all of those assets into the family trust that has nothing to do with business. And you're going to make your children the beneficiaries, okay? And now with the family trust, remember, we received a distribution of $70,000 from the business trust. So the family trust just received income of $70,000. The family trust needs to pay taxes on that income of $70,000. But once again, we are going to spend the money first. So what does it look like in order for you to provide for your family? Well, last time I checked, you have groceries, you have tuition, you have gas, you have a car note, you have mortgage, you have utilities, you have property taxes, all kinds of expenses, okay? Insurance premiums, you name it. All of that is tax deductible, right? All of those expenses are associated with providing for the family, okay? So it's going to be deducted from the $70,000. So let's just say it costs $60 in order to run the family. And so now we only have $10,000 that's left. Out of the $10,000 that's left, you're going to have to pay 10% taxes on that $10,000, which is $1,000. And you can easily do that. That's fine, right? For you to pay $1,000 out of $100,000 in income is absolutely phenomenal. But there's another thing that we can do, right? Because what do we want to do? We want to keep as much money as possible. So the other thing that we can do is what we call a charitable contribution, right? A charitable contribution is where we're going to donate to a charity of our choice, right? And obviously the IRS will allow us to donate up to 60% of our annual gross income, right? And so that $10,000, what we're going to do is we are going to donate it to our tax-exempt nonprofit trust. Right? So now what transpired is with the family trust, 70,000 went in. We did a deduction of 60,000 in operating expenses, and we did a donation of 10,000, which means that we have $0 left. Because we have $0 left, that means that we pay 0% in taxes, which means that we have zeroed it out. So now we're all done with the family trust. So now we're going to move on to the tax exempt nonprofit trust. So this trust is designated as a 508c1a under the Internal Revenue Code. So it's automatically exempt from having to file for a 501c3 because of the separation between church and state. So this trust is known as a faith-based organization, which means that it can be operated either as for religious purpose, for charitable purposes, or for education purposes. So you get to decide how you want to operate your organization. Okay, so as long as it falls within those three categories, then it's automatically going to be exempt from federal income taxes, and you do not have to report any of the expenditures. Now, it can also qualify to be exempt from sales taxes, property taxes, state taxes, county taxes, city taxes, and any other forms of taxes, which is beautiful, okay? So one thing that I want you to know about this organization is that if you are a W-2 employee, and what can happen is the IRS will allow you to donate up to 60% of your annual gross income. So if you make 100,000 at your job, right, you can donate up to $60,000 to this trust, right? And then you're only taxed on $40,000 or 40% of your annual gross income, which means that you can save thousands of dollars that you can now allocate somewhere else. Right? Where can you allocate it? You can allocate it to investments and assets, right? So now we're all done with structure. Let's move on to credit. So the thing that I need you to know about credit is that you want to leverage OPM, other people's money, specifically the bank's money. And I need you to know that a trust can actually build credit. So a lot of us, we are so focused on leveraging our personal credit when we need to be focused on establishing a second credit profile, specifically business credit. And so a trust will actually establish business credit through its EIN number, okay? And with that being said, when you are leveraging business credit, you get to qualify for higher lines of credit, which is what you want, right? Instead of on the personal side, you getting approved for 10,000, on the business side, you can get approved for 80,000. So we need to put ourselves in that position to where we're now leveraging two credit profiles, right? Because that is what we're going to do. We're going to put ourselves in a position to where we get to leverage OPM, other people's money, the bank's money, because the bank is doing that to us. Do you know that the bank is leveraging your money? What happens when you deposit your paycheck into the bank? Let's talk about it, you guys. What happens when you deposit your paycheck into the bank?
They loan it.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Okay, we got a genius on the call. I love it. So we actually live in a fractional reserve system. So do you know that what you see on your bank ledger is not really there? So you might see $1,000 and they probably only have $10, 15, 20, 100, right? So they lend it out, right? So you mean to tell me that when I get paid and my money goes direct deposit into Bank of America, that Bank of America is getting rich off of me because I'm actually lending them money because my direct deposit is going straight into their bank, right? And so they're lending it for what? Student loans, mortgages, car loans, and they are getting rich. So if the bank is doing that, we should also be doing that. So what can we do? We can reverse engineer and do the same thing. We can actually receive loans and we can get rich off of receiving loans by using the bank's money, okay? So that's the position that we need to put ourselves in, which is OPM, okay? So now once again, you get to put yourself in a position to where you can build credit for the trust. So now let's move on to the next one. The next one that I want to talk to you guys about is invest. Okay, so these are my two favorite assets. The first one is the Index Universal Life Insurance Policy, and the second one is real estate. So first, let's talk about the life insurance policies, okay? Now, when it comes to life insurance, a lot of people think that life insurance is supposed to be used when they are dead, when in all actuality, life insurance is supposed to be used when they are living. That's why it's called life insurance and not death insurance, right? Because there are a lot of living benefits with the life insurance. So what are the living benefits? Well, the first thing is that you get to accumulate money inside of your life insurance tax-free. So we love it, right? You get to put it in tax-free, you get to take it out tax-free. So that's beautiful. The next thing is that it's protected. Just in case somebody wants to sue you, they cannot take the money that's inside of your life insurance policy. So that's a beautiful thing, right? Another thing is that there is a death benefit associated with the life insurance policy, meaning that if you transition or expire, right, there's a specific dollar amount associated with your policy where your beneficiary will receive that dollar amount. So, for example, with my policy, my death benefit is $2.8 million, right? So my beneficiary is going to receive that when I transition, okay? So now the next thing is that with this policy, right, there's another cash accumulation, and it's called cash value, right? And so with cash value, what happens is when you are making your premium payments every single month, you start to accumulate cash value inside of this account, right? And that's a beautiful thing because now this cash value can then also earn compound interest, right? So what we mean by this is so when it comes to the compound interest, right? That's going to be based off of the performance of the stock market. So you see the word index in this type of policy, which is the Index Universal Life Insurance Policy. The index is referring to the stock market, and it's referring to an index in the stock market. So there are several different indices like the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. So the S&P 500, it stands for Standard & Poor's 500, and it's actually tracking the top 500 companies in this country. So that's your Amazon, your Facebook, your Google, right? And so whatever those companies, those 500 companies, whatever their performance is, right, is what the index does. And this policy, the beautiful thing about it is that whatever the stock market is doing, they'll match it and they'll give you returns based off of it. So your money, right, your cash value, it is not invested in the stock market, but it still gets to reap the rewards of what the stock market is doing, right? And so if the stock market is doing 9%, then the carrier is going to give you 9% returns on your cash value, okay? So for example, let's talk about your cash value and how you're going to accumulate cash value. So let's just say that your premiums are $100 a month. Based off of how you structure your policy, right, is going to tell, how much money you are going to accumulate in your cash value. So let's just say that you structure it to where there's like an 80-20 split, which means that out of that $100 a month, $20 goes to the insurance carrier, and that's the cost of insurance, right? And then $80 is going to your cash value. So now every single month, when you're paying that $100 premium, $80 is going into your cash value. So you have $80, then $80, then $80. So that means that it's starting to accumulate, right? It's starting to have that snowball effect, right? Which is beautiful. But then out of the $80, $80, $80, right? Then the second component is that it's going to earn compound interest, which means that it's going to get 9% and then 9% and then 9%. So you are literally putting your money in a place to where it is actually going to grow, where each dollar is going to bring back a friend, right? Where every single dollar that goes out, it brings back 9 cents, 10 cents, 25 cents. That is what you want, right? And this policy, right, is risk-free because if the stock market crashes, right? Your money wasn't invested in the stock market. So your cash value is going to remain intact. And if it crashes, that means that you won't get a return, right? So you'll get 0 or 1, right? Which is extremely powerful because that is what we need to do, right? We need to put our money in places to where it's going to generate income for us, right? And so when it comes to the life insurance policies and the trust, what you need to know is that the trust is going to own the policy. You are going to be the insured. The trust is going to pay the premiums every single month, and the trust is going to be the beneficiary of the policy. So that is extremely powerful, right? So now let's talk about real estate, right? Because I absolutely love real estate. It is my favorite thing in the entire world. It is the reason why I was able to retire myself at 31 years old from my nursing career, because I believed in real estate. And I come from very humble beginnings where I was a squatter living in abandoned buildings. And now today I have a 7-figure portfolio only because I was intentional when I was 25 years old. So when it comes to real estate and the trust, I need you to know that a trust can actually own real estate. A trust can get a mortgage. A trust can get a home equity line of credit. Okay. So with this type of strategy, what needs to happen is the trust, it needs to be able to qualify for a mortgage. So that means that you're going to provide bank statements, and then you'll also do tax returns. Okay. So now it's going to qualify for a mortgage. This type of mortgage that is going to qualify for is called a DSCR. The DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio, which is a mortgage that they give to an entity for an income producing property that is not owner occupied. So with that being said, let's just say that we're going to buy a triplex, right? So we got 3 doors under one roof. So with this type of triplex, right, we're going to get a DSCR loan and they are going to lend us up to 80% of the purchase price. So let's just say that they give us the 80%. That's perfect, right? So then what we need to do is we need to put ourselves in a position to where we can find the other 20%. And the way that we're going to find that 20% is through using OPM, other people's money, specifically the bank's money. So remember, we were intentional about building business credit. So let's just say that we got a credit card for $80,000, right? So because we got this credit card for $80,000, what we're going to do is we are going to liquidate that credit card. And now that $80,000 is going straight into our bank account, right? And so the first thing that we're going to do with that $80,000 is not go straight to the closing table. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put that $80,000 into our index universal life insurance policy so that it can accumulate compound interest, and it can go straight into the cash value. So now that we have funneled that 80,000 in there, the cash value went up by 80,000, and now we get to earn compound interest. So let's just say that the market is doing 10%. We're going to earn 10% off of that $80,000, which is a beautiful thing. So now the next thing that we need to do is remember that $80,000 we needed in order to purchase the real estate. So what we're going to do is we are going to request a loan from the life insurance company, which is an automatic thing that they do. Why? Because they see so with your life insurance policy, it's liquid. Okay. So it's full liquidity. The next thing is that they see your cash value as collateral and as an asset. Your life insurance policy is an asset, right? So they see your cash value as collateral. So now they're going to lend you the money. And they're going to lend it. They're not going to take your money out of the cash value. What they're going to do is they're going to take it out of their reserves. So you have just requested a loan for, let's just say $80,000, right? And they're like, okay, well, we'll give you the loan for $79,000, right? And so they're going to do a direct deposit and they're going to give you 79,000 straight into your bank account. And that is their money coming from their reserves, right? Your 80,000 is still sitting in your cash value, earning compound interest, which is exactly what you want it to do, okay? You want to park your money in a place where it's making more money, okay? And so now what's going to happen is your money just, the 79,000 just went into your direct deposit. And now you're going to use it as the down payment for real estate, okay? So now what's going to happen is you have just purchased this triplex, and the way that you did it is by having the DSCR loan for the 80% and using that 79,000 as the 20% down, and you just bought real estate for zero down, which is 100% financing, which means that you didn't use any of your own money, which is powerful. So I will tell you, sitting here today, I will tell you that this is possible, and this is the strategy that I used, multiple DSCR loans and multiple ways of getting 100% financing. My very first property, 100% financing. So there have been so many real estate deals that I did not have to put now $1 of my own money. And so I want you to also know and understand that you don't have to put $1 of your own money. Okay, you can get 100% financing. So now what's going to happen is I have a question for you guys, right? So now you acquired the real estate, right? So what is going to happen? Well, it's the first of the month and it's time to collect rent. So now that it's time to collect rent, you go to each tenant, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, right? So now you have $6,000 in rental income that just came in on the first of the month. What are you going to do with it? Somebody come off mute. Don't let me feel like I'm
Put
alone
it
over
in
here.
there. Put it in
Put it in.
insurance so it can make some money.
Oh
Uh,
my, yes. Can you tell how excited I am? Yes. Hello. Woo. Okay, this is so beautiful. Yes. You are going to funnel it into your life insurance policy. It's going to go straight into your cash value, that's $6,000. And then you're going to borrow it back out. Let's just say that they say, because the thing about the life insurance company is that they're not going to let you take 100. They'll let you take 99, 98, 95, depending on the carrier, okay? So let's just say that you say, okay, I need a loan, right? You just put 6,000 in there. They're like, okay, yeah, we'll give you 5,500. They do a direct deposit of 5,500, and then you go and pay the mortgage, you pay the credit card, and then you have cash that is sitting inside of your trust fund account, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to rinse and repeat. You're going to do this whole process over and over and over again, because what I need you to know is that you are going to put the trust in a position to where it can sustain itself. You are not going to be pouring in your W-2 income into the trust. This is not the way that this works. The way that this works is that the trust is designed to sustain itself by accumulating assets using other people's money, meaning bank loans, right? And so that is how you're going to accumulate those assets so that the trust can eventually retire you, which is what you want. That is what happened to me. I retired at 31 years old. Why? Because I was intentional about accumulating assets for my trust, right? It takes a mindset shift for you to say, hey, I am not going to work for money anymore. I am not going to exchange my time for money anymore. My money is going to work for me. I want you to know that. I want you to know and believe that your money can make more money. Your money can do all the heavy lifting. Your money can work for you. And that is what it is designed for. And that is what you need to do. Because look at what we just did, right? That $80,000, we parked it into the life insurance policy, and now it's making 10%. But then we borrowed it back out, right? And then we parked it into real estate. So you're telling me that that $80,000 is parked in two places, earning income, right? Earning dividends, earning interest, right? Earning money. So we parked it in two places, right? That is what you need to do. And so then it just starts to accumulate and accumulate and accumulate, right? And so I don't want you to wait until retirement in order to start what we call a distribution system. This is what that is, right? This is a distribution system. I don't want you to wait until retirement, right? I don't want you to wait until your old age, because this is the lie that we have bought into. And the lie that we have bought into is what? Does anybody know the lie that we bought into?
Yeah, work all your life till you get old, and then you retire, and then you really don't have the money to spend. You won't be able to enjoy it.
Yes, 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 that's it. It's called a rat race.
Yeah.
We're literally in the rat race, the hamster wheel. We have been institutionalized, okay? I'm not even gonna lie to you. We have been institutionalized from kindergarten, right? So from kindergarten to 12th grade, what did we do? We went to an institution, we went to a building for 8 hours a day. And then we came home, we had a little bit of leisure, we went to bed, we woke up, we did the same thing, Monday through Friday, right? And so now they have institutionalized us. So now when we go to college and we start our career, guess what we do? Monday through Friday, we're giving them 8 hours a day, right? 40 hours a week for what? 40 years. And then we retire when we're 65. And what happens when we're 65? Then we have financial freedom, location freedom, time freedom, right? If that, right? And so a lot of us, we don't even have a retirement plan. What are we going to do? We're going to depend on Social Security. Why? Because that is what the system wants for us. Why? Because that is how the system was designed. The system was designed to keep us in debt. The system was designed to keep us institutionalized, to keep us distracted, right? And to keep us enslaved so that we constantly have to make money and we constantly have to trade our time for money. Okay, so this is our reality. So now you have to decide if you want to continue to subscribe to what the system has created for you, or if you're going to unsubscribe. If you're going to unsubscribe, that means that you're not going to depend on Social Security. That means that you're going to park your money in the right place. That means that you're going to retire young. That means that you are now going to put yourself in a position to where you're going to get that time freedom and location freedom now. You're going to get that financial freedom now, right? And so what does that look like? That looks like, right, like you setting up a trust, you acquiring assets, you having the trust generate income, right? So I actually, I remember the day that I decided to unsubscribe from the system, and I decided that I wasn't going to wait until I was 65. So one day I was at work, right? As a nurse, 2 years in, 25 years old, right? I was a nurse, and I had a coworker, and her name was Miss Audrey, right? And so Miss Audrey was 65 years old, and she is at work exhausted to the point that she cannot take care of her patients. So I'm young, I'm doing donuts around the hallways here, in the hospital. So I am taking care of my patients and her patients, right? Because she's exhausted. So I look at her and I ask her, I said, Miss Audrey, when are you going to retire? And she tells me, I'm not ready to retire. And I'm like, you're not ready to retire? Like, you look like you're tired, right? And I was like, Miss Audrey, you did your 40 years. Miss Audrey was a nurse for 40 years at that point in time. Started when she was 20, she's 65, right? 25, 65. So she was a nurse for exactly 40 years. I said, you did your 40 years. And she's like, Christina, I'm not ready to retire. I'm going to wait until I'm 67 and a half. And I'm like, 67 and a half? And I'm like, why? I thought retirement was 65, right? And she's like, if I wait until I'm 67 and a half, Social Security is going to give me an extra $300. And I looked at her and I said, Miss Audrey, you're going to work for another 2.5 years for an extra $300? She's like, yes, Christina. And I made the decision at that point in time that I was not going to be Miss Audrey. I made the decision at that point in time that I wasn't going to give 40 years to the hospital. I made the decision at that point in time that I wasn't going to rely on Social Security. At that point in time, I made the decision at that point in time that I was going to retire myself in 10 years. I said, I'm only giving this career 10 years. Why? Your neck hurts, your back hurts, your knee hurts, you can't use the bathroom. You're in a concrete box for 13 hours. Where's the quality of life? And I have a 1-year-old at home with my mom. So I said, I'm going to give myself 10 years. I was able to retire myself in 8 years of the 10 years. But I said to myself, I'm not going to be like Miss Audrey. Because unfortunately for Miss Audrey, she was so tired after work and she wasn't feeling good that when she got into her car and she pulled out of the parking lot, she hit the tree right in front of the emergency room and she died on impact. So Miss Audrey never made it to retirement. She never made it to 67 and a half. She never even made it out of the hospital that day. So that's when I decided that's not going to be me. And I don't want that to be you. I don't want to wait. I don't want you to wait. I don't want you to continue to be in this vicious cycle that we're in. So there is a way out, but it's going to take a mindset shift. And the mindset shift is very scary. There is a lot of fear involved with you not having a secured paycheck. There's a lot of fear involved with you acquiring assets, you being a landlord, you not knowing how to operate a truck. There's a lot of fear involved. But you have to be able to look fear in the face and say, I'm going to do it anyways. Look fear in the face and say, I'm going to be the generational curse breaker in my family. I'm the one that's going to break the chains of poverty in my family. I'm the one that's going to change the trajectory of my life and my kids' life. I'm the one that's going to be the first millionaire in my family. I'm the one that's going to create generational wealth that's actually going to last generations. You have to be that person. And I know that you're that person because that's the reason why you're on their call. Because this right here, this is kingdom work for me, right? This is my God-given path. And so only people that are just like me, which is generational curse breakers, are attracted to these Zoom calls. So I know that you're that person. You're probably in that between phase, right? Where you're taking care of your parents and your children, and you're just right there in the middle like a hot dog bun, right? So it's time to get our affairs in order for us to be able to have that solid foundation, right? That solid foundation is so important, right? That is the foundation of everything. For us to be able to protect our assets, for us to be able to protect our business, for us to be able to protect our income, for us to be able to protect our children and their inheritance, right? It's going to take us to do all the hard work. There's one person in every single family. Do you know that that one person is you? I was the one person in my family. Do you know that that one person is you? It's going to take you to sacrifice. It's going to take you to learn how to become a trustee. It's going to take you to learn how to set up a trust. It's going to take you to learn how to invest. It's going to take you to learn how to acquire assets. It's going to take you to learn how to fire your boss and say, I don't want your stinking paycheck. I don't want your Social Security payments. It's going to take you. I promise you, I am not depending on Social Security. So I don't want you to also depend on Social Security. I also don't want you to wait until retirement until you're 65. No. No, 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 no. So another thing that I wanted to tell you is that when it comes to life insurance, right? A lot of people think that the banks, that the way that they are getting rich and making all of this money is through the loans and the credit cards. But in all actuality, the banks, right, the big ones, which is Chase, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo, their number one asset is life insurance policies. So if their number one asset is life insurance policies, what do you think your number one asset should be? Let me hear it. Gotta hear it. Gotta hear it. What do you think it should be?
Life insurance.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to give you a little bit more information and then we are going to close out, you guys. So let me dive right back into my presentation. So how are we going to transfer wealth? We're going to put ourselves in a position to where we own nothing but control everything. And I'm going to say it again because it's so important. We're going to put ourselves in a position to where we own nothing and control everything. And I will tell you that we have bought into, the programming of society, which is what? Get the white picket fence, get the house, get the dog, the nuclear family, right? This is what society has programmed us into desiring, right? And so what society wants for us is for us to own everything in our personal name. Why do you think that everywhere you go, they ask you for your name and social? Why? Because they're able to track you. They know what you own. They know where you work. They know everything. Why? Because of the system, right? So the system was designed for you to own everything in your personal name, okay? The house is in your name. The car is in your name. The bank account is in your name. The employer is paying you through your name and your social, right? Everything is in your name, right? And that is what we call ownership. We need to move away from ownership. We need to move into stewardship. Stewardship is where you own nothing in your personal name, but you control everything. Let me ask you a question. Remember, we talked about the beautiful house with the white picket fence. If this house is in your name and you don't wake up tomorrow, is the house still going to be there? Yes or no?
No.
The house is not going to be there?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Okay. So if I don't wake up tomorrow, guess what? This house that I live in, this house is still going to be here if I don't wake up tomorrow. So the same thing applies for you. Now, what I'm telling you is that if you know that that house is still going to be there, that land is still going to be there, that car is still going to be there, that cash money is still going to be there, you're not going to be able to take any of that stuff when you go. Then what you truly, 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 truly want is control. You want to be able to control those assets while you are living. You want to be able to control that house. You want to have full control over that house while you are living. And a trust can give you that control without you actually owning the house, which is what you want. So that is you being a good steward of your wealth, you being a good steward of your property, you being a good steward of what God has given you, right? So have you ever asked yourself the question of how are you going to transfer your wealth? Because a lot of us, we are so focused on making the money that we never ask ourselves, how am I going to transfer the money? A lot of us. So the way that you transfer the money is, one is going to require you setting up a trust. Now, this trust is actually going to create trust certificate units, which are TCUs. TCUs are equivalent to stock certificates. So you know how stock certificates represent ownership in a corporation? TCUs represents beneficial interest in a trust. So the trust is going to create 100 TCUs. And now what you're going to do is you're going to distribute them to your beneficiaries. So let's just say you have 4 beneficiaries, right? And you give 25 units to each, right? And boom, that's it, 100 units gone, right? And so I'm one of your beneficiaries, thank God. So now let's just say that your trust is worth $1 million, right? If I'm one of your beneficiaries and you gave me 25 units, that means I have 25% of beneficial interest. If that trust net worth is $1 million, that means that my beneficial interest is equivalent to $250,000. So if that trust is terminated tomorrow, that's what my inheritance is going to be, and I'm going to receive it tax-free. Okay, so that is how you're going to transfer wealth. That is how the 1% transfer wealth. And last time I checked, you're part of the 1%. So this is the foundation that you need to adopt in order for your children to receive their inheritance, okay? Now, my question to you is, right, how come we see celebrities, famous families, right? Athletes, right? All of these people, how come we see that they get all this money, right? Which is $100 million contracts and all this stuff, right? Movie deals, all this stuff. And they either blow the money in their lifetime, or if they don't blow it in their lifetime, it doesn't reach the second or third generation, right? Do you know that 90% of the wealth that is created within a family is lost by the second generation? The reason being is because we don't think about preservation of wealth. Have you ever thought to yourself, this $1 million that I have, right? This $50,000, this $100,000 that I have, how am I going to preserve it? Right? We never even ask ourselves this question, how are we going to preserve the wealth, right? So the reason why it happens to the athletes and celebrities and we see them losing it all is because they don't have the tools. So when it comes to preservation of wealth, there's two tools. The first one is the life insurance policies. The second one is the trust, right? You need both. You need the trust, you need the life insurance policies, right? And so you have to understand that the trust has a lot of assets. The trust has a house, so it has homeowners insurance. The trust has a car, it has automobile insurance. The trust has cash money in the bank, it has FDIC. So the trust has human assets. Those human assets are you, your children, and your future grandchildren, right? Your children's children, right? So you guys are human assets. So the trust needs to ensure you, the trustee, as well as the beneficiaries and the future beneficiaries, okay? Because if anything happens to you, right, you are the insured. So let me break it down again, right? So the trust is going to take out the life insurance policies on you, right? So the trust is going to be the owner of the policy, the payer of the premiums, and the beneficiary, and you're going to be the insured, right? And so the trust has insured the human asset, which is you. If anything happens to you, you have a $2 million death benefit. That $2 million goes straight to the trust, which is powerful. That's why the trust insures the trustee, the beneficiaries, and the future beneficiaries. Those future beneficiaries are what we call trust fund babies. So when you hear the term trust fund babies, that means that there has been a baby born into the trust organization. That baby obviously is a child of a beneficiary to the trust. So when we have a trust fund baby born into the organization, when that baby is 30 days old, we're going to go ahead and put a life insurance policy on them. All right. And so we're going to be paying that $100 premium every single month. So now the trust is paying $100, $100, $100. That trust fund baby from 30 days old is going to grow up, and they're going to grow up. One day they're going to be 18 years old, right? So what happens when they're 18? Well, when they're 18 years old, what happens is they're going to go to college. And so this trust fund baby needs a car, right? I need a set of Hot Wheels. I'm going to college. I need to be riding around campus, right? And so that trust fund baby can easily go down to the dealership, pull their credit, get into a high interest car loan, and end up paying $1,000 a month for a $30,000 car. Or because they're privileged enough to be born into a trust organization, they can go straight to the trust and they can request a loan. And they're going to request a loan for $30,000. They're going to be like, hey, trustee, I need a loan for $30,000 so I can go buy my first car. And so the trustee is going to literally write a check, hand it over to the trust fund baby. They're going to go buy their car cash. But because we want that trust fund baby to be responsible, right, and accountable, that trust fund baby is now going to have to pay the trust let's just say $300 a month, right? To show some type of financial responsibility. So now the trust fund baby is paying the trust $300 a month. And let's just say the trust fund baby's like, I don't want to pay the trust anymore. After a year, the trust fund baby defaults, right? That is completely fine. The reason why it's fine is because the money did not originate from the trust fund. the money actually originated from that trust fund baby's life insurance policy. Because remember, we're able to take out a loan from their life insurance policy and borrow against their cash value. So the trustee, the minute that that trust fund baby asked for that $30,000, the trustee called up the insurance carrier and said, hey, I need a loan for $30,000. There was a direct deposit that happened between that carrier and the trust. And that is how the trustee was able to issue out that check for $30,000. So now it was a risk-free loan because you do not have to pay back loans, okay, to the life insurance company. What happens is all of those loans are going to be automatically deducted from the death benefit. So when that trust fund baby grows up and they transition and their death benefit is $5 million, that $5 million minus the $30,000 is going to go straight into the trust. And now the trust is replenished. And that is what preservation of wealth looks like. That is how you're going to ensure that the money is going to last the next generation. Why? Because every single time, because one, every person a part of the trust organization is going to be insured. And when they transition, the trust is going to be replenished with their death benefit. And this is a rinse and repeat. We're going to do this for generations and generations and generations. That is another way of how you're going to preserve the wealth within your trust, okay, which is super powerful. So, overall, these are the books that I recommend. I recommend What Would the Rockefellers Do? That is a really good book that teaches you about the connection between trust and life insurance. The next one is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. It teaches you about trusteeship, which is how to operate a trust. The next one is Family Wealth, which teaches you how to run your family like a business. All of us need to be running our family like a business. Do you know that you're the CEO of your family? Do you know that your spouse is the CFO of your family, right? Your children are secretaries. So you need to be running your family like a business, and Family Wealth teaches you that. And the last book that I recommend is The Complete Book of Trust that teaches you about the different types of trust. Remember, I told you to do your due diligence when it comes to trust so that you can set up the right trust for you. So now I want to show you a quick testimonial of one of the individuals that took action on the information that I shared with you guys tonight.
Just a
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while. And, there are a number of people offering trust these days. And, I guess that's the big thing, don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions, things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. And thank you, Mondo. That was a great explanation of infinite banking. I know a number of people are talking about that, but they make it so complex. And his presentation was nice and succinct and very informative. So this has been an overall great experience. Definitely will recommend you to others.
So just take action on the information that I provided tonight, you guys. We can work together. I do have a program that teaches you step by step how to set up these trusts, okay? So if you are looking at the screen, there is 3 options here. The first one is that you can do it yourself. And if you want to do it yourself, we do have an online course. And the online course comes with 43 video modules, and it teaches you step by step how to set up the 3 trusts. So the program doesn't only come with 1 trust or 2 trusts, it comes with 3. And those 3 trusts are the trust that I mentioned earlier, which is the business trust, the family trust, and the tax-exempt nonprofit trust, okay? So you need the entire system, which is the for-profit and the nonprofit within your structure, okay? So you do get lifetime access to the course, and the way that the course is designed is for you to download the trust templates, right? And I'll show you an example of one of them looks like in just a moment. So you're going to watch the video training where I break down every single step. And I break down every paragraph of the trust so that you can understand what's in it. and show you step by step on how to set it up yourself, okay? So a trust is a contract and you're able to set up this contract, right, on your own independently, okay? So it also comes with resources and ebooks. So the books that I just mentioned, some of those books cost around $800, right? So we give it to you electronically when you enroll into the program. And then as far as resources, we give you everything that you need in order for you to operate your trust efficiently and effectively, meaning that if you need to transfer your house, we'll give you the quick claim deed. If you need to open up a bank account, we give you the paperwork. If you need to file your taxes, we give you the paperwork, right? So we give you everything that you need in order for you to be able to operate your trust and for you to really learn how to, be a trustee, right? We also have a community. So we have over 2,200 trustees in our community, and you have full access to them. So we have a private Facebook community, which is very interactive. And then we have a Telegram chat where our trustees are chatting back and forth all day, every day. And these individuals are people that are in your city, they're in your state, and you have access to them. Why? Because they're like-minded individuals that have either, started like either recently started or they've started years ago, and they are full-fledged into operating their business trust and having their assets fully protected. So it is good to be able to network with individuals who are on the same path as you, and that's why we have our community available to you. So the do-it-yourself course is only $997. Your second option is if you want to do Done With You. Done With You is a workshop where we are going to work together, meaning that it is a group Zoom call and it is 5 days. Okay, so it is Monday through Friday from 11 in the morning to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, and we do it every 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, so during the workshop on Mondays, we're going to focus on the business trust. So I'm going to show you step by step how to set up that trust. I break down every single paragraph, and then I dive into Q&A so I can answer any and all questions. So you don't have to wait to get your questions answered. I will answer them on the spot, which is extremely powerful for you to be able to get clarity right away. So the second day is the family trust. So on Tuesday, we are going to focus on setting up the family trust, and then I dive into Q&A. And it is very powerful to be in these group Zoom calls because once again, you're on a Zoom call with like-minded individuals. They're asking really good questions that you did not know that you wanted to know. So you start to feed off of their energy and you start to actually learn more because of the people that are in the group Zoom call with you, okay? On Wednesday, we focus on setting up the tax-exempt nonprofit, and then I show you how to become an ordained minister if you want to operate it like a ministry. On Thursday, I show you how to get your EINs with the IRS so you can open up your bank accounts. I give you a list of the top banks that you want to go to and open up your trust account, and then I show you how to have a board meeting, and we go through banking operations and procedures and how to document how much you're going to fund the trust with. And then lastly, our fund manager comes in and he teaches you about business credit and business funding so that you can focus on OPM, because we're going to teach you the wealth building formula inside of the workshop, which is how you're going to leverage the banks, how you're going to get OPM, how you're going to build the business credit, how you're going to get the funding for the trust so that you can acquire the assets. We dive into Q&A, we answer all of your questions. The last day is Friday. On Friday, we focus on transferring assets. So first, you're going to take an inventory of your assets, and then I'm going to teach you how to transfer real estate by way of a quick claim deed. I teach you how to transfer your vehicles by way of a bill of sale, and I teach you how to transfer your businesses by way of a business purchase agreement. After that, our CPA comes in, and our CPA is going to teach you about trust taxes. So he's going to teach you how to fill out the forms, and he's going to answer all of your trust questions based off of your specific structure. So that's super powerful for you to be able to have resources readily available for you on the workshop. Okay. Now, the beautiful thing about the workshop is you still get access to the course. The workshops are recorded, so you get to watch the replays and you get lifetime access to the workshops, which means that every single time that we do a workshop, every 3 to 4 weeks, you can join the workshop. So you have lifetime access to join every workshop in the future. So right now in this week, we're in a workshop week, right? So if you wanted to join, and tomorrow we have day 4, Friday we have day 5, then you're able to join in April, May, June, July 2026, 2027. So you have lifetime access, which is extremely powerful, but you get that sense of security to where we're holding you accountable and you know that your trusts are being set up the right way. So the workshop is only $2,500, and then the last option is done for you. So done for you is where my team and I are going to be able to set up all 3 of your trusts for you. We apply for your EIN so you can open up your bank accounts, and we transfer all your assets like your house, your car, and your businesses. So everything is completely hands off. You get individualized support, you get one-on-one calls with me for strategy, and you also get the customization of your trust structure. So the private sessions are only $7,500. So if you guys are interested, then all you have to do is go to our website, which is wealthytrusty.com. You can call our number, you can also text us, and you can send us an email and visit us on social media. So what I want to do is I want to show you what the trust looks like as well as what the program looks like, and then we can open up the floor for Q&A. So hold on one second. All right, so this is what the actual program looks like. So with the program, as I mentioned, this is the online course, and if you get any of the tiers, then you still get lifetime access to the program, okay? So after your induction, then we teach you what a trust entity is. So you learn what the trust is, you learn about the different parties, like the grantors, trustees, beneficiaries, successors, protectors. You learn about the benefits and the different types. You learn how to set up the tax exempt trust. You learn how to set up the family trust. You learn how to set up the business trust. So we break down the indentures for you to learn everything. And then you learn about tax exempt status. You learn about the difference between for-profit and nonprofit and what distributable net income is and how to avoid tax evasion. Then you learn about asset protection. So we take an inventory. Then you learn how to open up that trust bank account, the brokerage account, how to transfer your house, your car, how to transfer your life insurance policies, your businesses, and how to have board meetings. Do you know how many times that I've seen it and spoken to individuals that are operating LLCs and corporations and they've never had a meeting? So here in this program, we teach you the right way of doing things. Because documentation is super important. Then we go into wealth creation. So here's where you're going to learn how to establish business credit, how to invest it in the stock market with index funds, and how to do the infinite banking with the life insurance policies. We teach you about the legacy crest, and then you get your resources in your ebooks. So this is what one of our sample trusts looks like. So this is the exact template that you would get. Everything that you see in red is what you're going to be customizing. Everything that you see in black, these are the provisions that you need in order for your trust to fully be bulletproof and to hold up in court. So without further ado, what I want to do is actually, for those of you guys who are intentional and you're serious and you are ready to get started, I will offer you guys 20% off in the next 24 hours using our discount code TRUST20 at checkout. So, do I have any questions? I know I went over a lot of information today, and I know you have to process it all. So, do you guys have any questions? I see that Devon has his hand up, Jennifer has her hand up, and then Natalia has her hand up. Okay. So, Devon, is it Devion?
Yeah, Davion.
Davion, how are you?
Good, good. How about you? Let's
Wonderful.
see. So, my wife had a home birth with my son, and we wanted it to be his decision whether or not he gets an SSN when he gets older, due to how everybody feels about that. Is there any way possible to put him inside of the trust, and how would you do that? I haven't really had anybody that's been able to answer that for me.
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Um, what our community members have done is, they will set up a family trust under the child's name, apply for an EIN, and they will treat that EIN like an SSN. And they will be able to navigate through the system through the trust that is named after that child.
Okay, so the EIN is the name on it would be the child's name?
The name of the trust is the child's name, and the
The name
trust
of the
will
trust.
and the trust will receive a 9-digit number.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And then my second question is does it have to be a IUL? Can it be a whole life insurance policy that you use?
Yes, it can be a whole life.
Okay, are there any like stipulations? Because I was speaking to my advisor today, and he said that I could only put in like 5,000. There's like a cap on it. You said that you could put like 80,000 into a IUL, but from like the credit card, am I saying that right?
Do you have a policy already?
I do. I have a whole life. I've been
Okay,
paying into
so
for years.
the cap is when you structure the policy. So that 5,000 is only for your policy. That's not for my policy or anyone else's policy. Everybody's policy is different. So when you structure the policy, before you even sign on the dotted line, you have to know how much money you want to funnel into your policy, right? So that's very important because there's something called what is the name of it? It escapes me right now. Um, I can't even remember. So there is a cap. So remember, your policy is tax free. If you go over a certain amount, then it's going to trigger for the IRS to start taxing your policy, it depends if it's going to be advantageous or not, but usually it is not advantageous. So it just depends on who owns the policy. So it's just so with your policy, it's already structured and you're capped at 5, so you have to get another policy.
Figured.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can have multiple policies.
Awesome. And then your mortgage, like if you still owe mortgage on your house, can you still put it into a trust? Like, do they have to like approve that you can even do something like that?
That's a really good question. So let me ask you a question. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to answer with a question. So do you have the deed to your property?
I do not. No, I'm still paying on it. Maybe that doesn't answer your question. Your
So,
face.
okay.
Like,
So when you bought the house, did they not give you a deed?
yeah, but it's not like, yeah. Okay, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So the answer is yes, you have a deed to your house. Okay. So who owns the property, you or the bank?
I do.
Correct. You have the deed, you can transfer the deed. You do not need this bank's permission. You can let them know. Um, you can let them know, and usually it's fine. So when it comes to the bank, right? You are able to transfer your property into a trust, right? Without triggering the acceleration clause or what we call the due on sale clause. So you're able to transfer the property with no types of risk of the bank calling your loan due. Okay. So that's extremely powerful. So just know that, that you can still do it. Do you need their permission? No, you're the owner of the property. Do you want to tell them? You can. You can give them a courtesy, but you have to understand that if you transfer that property into the trust, you're protecting that property from them. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Okay, and the reason being is because they cannot foreclose on you, and then you won't even have to go through bankruptcy, right? So you're protecting it from them because your mortgage company is a creditor. Do you think that they want to take your property from you if you default?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so if you were to call them all willy-nilly and say, hey, do you recommend for me to put my house into a trust? What do you think they're going to tell you?
Or they're gonna try to discourage me, basically. They're gonna try to discourage me from doing it.
Yes, they are. Why? Because it is not in the best interest of the bank for your property to be in a trust. So that was great. Thank you so much, Davion.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, can I ask one last question and I'll let you go?
Yeah.
Just one last one. Okay. Like antiques and jewelry and stuff like that, is that able to go inside of your trust as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah. Yes, for
Awesome.
sure. Definitely. You got heirlooms, you have
Yeah,
antiques,
yeah.
your Rolex, your wife's diamond ring, everything can go in there. Yes. Those are personal property that you can assign to the trust. And so you would have to list it. So every single asset that is going to be owned by the trust, you have to list it inside of the trust indenture.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate your spirit. Have a good day.
You're welcome. All right, next we have Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, how are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
Wonderful. Really good. I got a couple of questions, but one of my questions is, let's say I already have a revocable trust in place, and I was kind of discouraged by an attorney not to get a irrevocable. Actually, they said they don't even do irrevocables.
Mhm.
And they definitely discouraged me from doing it and told me just to get a LLC and to put it all in a revocable. However, just listening to you is kind of making me want to redo it. Would it be wise to change the name? And do I have to get an EIN if I wanted to change the name?
So you cannot change the name of the trust. So that's already set in stone. So because the trust is already executed, you cannot change who the grantor is, meaning who created it, and the name of the trust. Those are the two things that you can't change. Everything else is amendable.
Okay, and that's even in a revocable.
Yes.
Okay, and then I have another question. I actually own a house and I have it in the revocable, but what I did not do is get it reappraised. Would it be wise if I wanted to take it and put it in the irrevocable to protect it better? Would it be better to get um, appraisal on the house to add the value so that it would be more up to date on the value of the house for the asset having more funds inside, or no?
Yeah, I mean, so that is personal preference. So you don't have to, so the value is the value, right? You don't have to get an appraisal unnecessarily. Like typically you're going to get an appraisal if you're going to get a home equity line of credit or another mortgage. So the value is the value. If you don't know what the value is, right, then yes, absolutely. But it's not something that we just voluntarily do in order for us to know what the net worth of our trust assets are.
Okay. And then one last question. The three-tier trust that you have in place with the business, the family, and then the tax exempt, all three of them are irrevocable, and are all three of them required to have separate EINs?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, Jennifer. Thank you. Next, we have Natalia. Hi, Natalia. How are you?
Hi. Thank you so much for such a valuable information, Christina. I have a
You're so
question.
welcome. Thank you for
Yeah.
being here.
Yeah, I have an S corp, and my accountant has no idea how to deal with trust. I already asked her. So will I need to find a different accountant to do file taxes, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And do I find that within the community? Will you kind of help
Yeah, so
find
so
local
we
person?
We have our own CPA, and our CPA works with all of our community members, and he shows you step by step on how to file taxes for the trust and how to implement it into your current tax structure. And he answers all of your tax questions. So I just recommend that you go with our educator initially just to get that foundational education. And then if you want to continue on with him and his team, because he has a team of CPAs that he works with, then absolutely.
Mhm. Thank you. Does it mean that I will still operate as an S corp, paying all the taxes I'm usually paying, correct? Nothing
Yeah.
has
So,
been
so yeah,
affected.
so the S corp is going to remain intact. Now, when it comes to the trust, unfortunately, the way that the S corp is structured, a trust cannot own an S corp. So a trust can only own an LLC and a C corp. So your S corp, is it a traditional corporation or is it an LLC taxed as an S corp?
So I guess it's traditional S corp.
Is traditional, okay. So, because of the way that the S corporation is formed, you have to have a human associated with the S corporation. So it cannot be 100% owned by an entity, and that's just for S corps.
So can I change to LLC,
You can,
cancel
you can,
that
yeah.
and open?
Yeah, you can if you want, and then the trust can own 100% of it. So what you would do is you would set up the business trust first, and then have the business trust open up an LLC, and then your name will never appear anywhere on the public records. That's the right way of doing it.
Okay, so trust first and then trust can set up an LLC.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And the last question, where do we get trust certificate?
It comes with the indenture. Yeah, it
Okay.
comes with the indenture. So in the indenture, it has several different sections. It has declarations, constitutions, bylaws, certificates, schedules, A, B, C, D. So there's a lot of different sections, and one of the sections is a trust certificate.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, next we have Sheena.
Hi, Christina.
Hi, how are you, Sheena?
Good. Thank you so much for all of your valuable information. My
Oh,
first
you're so
question
welcome.
is when you say control the trust from the grave. Okay. So the trust, it terminates after I transition.
It
So
doesn't.
am I,
It
it
doesn't.
does, okay, so it renews.
Let's just say you set up your trust today, Sheena. You have to determine how long you want your trust to exist for. So typically you'll choose anywhere between 1 to 100 years, but 1 year is just doesn't make any sense. So like I recommend that you would choose 100 years. And so now, Sheena, your trust is going to automatically exist for 100 years. And so now whenever you transition, the trust is still going to exist because the 100 years is not up yet.
Okay. Okay.
So when I say
Great to know.
control, so when I say control it from the grave, remember it's everything that you put inside of that trust when you set it up and how you was operating it, meaning when you operated it, you made more improvements, you made amendments, you made it stronger, you added more money, you did all these things while you were operating it, right? But
Right.
all of those restrictions, all of those rules, all of those regulations, they're inside of the trust. You set that up. So now when you transition, the trust is still going to exist. The people that you want to benefit from the trust are still going to benefit, but all of those provisions that you set up are still intact and being enforced. That's what I mean by you controlling that money that's inside of that trust straight from the grave.
Okay. Okay. Second question. So my IUL. So when I put put the money into the IUL just for it to gain, the compound interest, and then I take it back out. Don't I have to let it sit? I don't have to let it sit for like months at a time, or I can put it in there and take it out like the next week and I'll have the compound interest?
That's a great question. So remember, when you're taking it out, you are not taking out the money from the cash value. Your money is still sitting inside of your cash value. You're receiving a loan from the carrier and they're giving you money from their bank account. So your money is still sitting in the cash value. They didn't touch your money. They're lending you their money.
So if I buy the property, I get, I collect the rent, the $8,000. I put the $8,000 in my IUL. I'm getting a loan from the insurance company, but my money is still compounding interest. When I put
Correct.
that $8,000 in there and I call them and say, hey, I need to borrow $8,000, that compound interest would have already compound, or I'm confused on that part. Um,
So,
the
so,
eight
uh, so the insurance carrier, they match you every single month.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, got it. Okay. Last question. Okay, if I buy another property with the trust being irrevocable, I can't add another property after
Yes,
I've
yes, you
I
can. So
can?
you
Okay,
can put property in and you can take property out at any point in time as long as you're the trustee of the trust. The grantor can't
okay,
do it, but you can. So that's why it's important for you to assign yourself in the right position.
okay. Great to know. Thank you. That's all I
You're
had.
welcome. You're welcome, Sheena. All right, next we have Mona. Hey, Mona. Are you, we can't hear you. Are you talking? We cannot hear you, Mona. Yeah, no, we cannot hear you. Do you want to put your question in the chat? Okay. So I'll answer your question in just a moment. Next we have MP.
Hi, Christina. I have only one question.
Okay.
You mentioned something about not like once you create the trust and you don't have to pay the property taxes. I thought it was non-exempt, sorry, tax exempt family trust, I guess, or based on something. I don't remember which one was that.
Oh, so if you place your property into your family trust is a for-profit entity and it does have to pay property taxes. So, the only way for you to qualify, to not pay property taxes is if you were to place that property into the tax exempt nonprofit trust and you are able to prove to the county that you have nonprofit activity happening from that real estate, like a church or a farm or a retreat or, something nonprofit, then you can apply for property tax exemption and then they'll approve you based off of the nonprofit activity.
Okay. So right now I'm in the same situation as one of the other participant asked. Like I created a revocable living trust and I moved my primary home underneath that, but it's still tied up to my SSN. So it's not fully bulletproof yet. And I also
Correct.
got the deed. And I also register with the county and get on the recording. The house is on now under the trust name, not an individual name. So
Oh,
it's a 50% done kind of thing, but it's not yet fully like control. everything kind of situation because it's still tied up to my SSN. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do reverse and see what is the best combination which will work for me.
Yeah, so unfortunately, your asset is not protected, and anyone who wants to come after you and through your Social Security can penetrate through your trust. So
Correct.
what I would tell you to do is for you to create an irrevocable trust and for you to transfer that property from the revocable to the irrevocable, and then it will be protected.
Oh, okay. So it's a simple move after creating the
It's just
irrevocable.
that simple. Yep, it's just that simple. It's not complex at all. Just like how you deeded it over from your personal name to the trust, you're going to deed it over from one trust to the next trust.
Got it. Would you be able to help just for that transition?
Yeah, we can assist, absolutely. So if you just reach out to my team, we can they'll be able to let you know what the next steps are.
Okay. Anybody in particular?
I hear you.
I don't know. Somehow it's a lot of noise coming out in the line.
Oh yeah. What was the question?
Anybody in particular I need to reach out, like email or name?
Yeah, so the email is info@sevenwaystowealth.com. So I'll also put my email in there too. So I'll put it in the chat, and then you can reach out to me and my team and we'll be able to assist.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see here. Nick. What is this? I don't know why the sounds like that. Davion, do you have a question?
Yes, I had just a couple very briefly. Um, why doesn't the transfer on death, like what are the cons of like why doesn't the transfer on death like fix the problem of the house not going into probate?
Because of your liabilities, you don't know how many liabilities you have upon death.
Okay, so it wouldn't stop the house from going into probate.
Nope, and it wouldn't stop the house from going into foreclosure either. Do you know how many
That is,
times that people die and their house goes into foreclosure?
it happens all the time, but I was advertised to and told that if you just transfer your house on death, then you're good. You know, you rest assured you're fine. So I thought I'd run that question by you. That's yeah.
That's the same thing that they tell you about a will too.
God, they just lied to me left and right. Okay. And also I was thinking, well, I was actually um asked to consider running for trustee in my township. Would that conflict with me being a trustee of my own trust? I know that's a silly question, but I just thought I'd ask.
So you can be a trustee on multiple trust.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what your township's restrictions are, so you would have to find out if they have stipulations. But as far as private trusts, you can be a trustee on an unlimited amount of trust. There's no limitation.
Okay, then yeah, you definitely just answered my question there because I didn't know that you could be a trustee on multiple trusts. So thank you for that. And then my last question is, I had an issue with like the drawing of blood on the IUL. They were like, "Hey, we need blood, we need urine to make sure that you're healthy, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, well, I don't really feel comfortable with that, religious reasons, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, well, we can't help you. We can't give you IUL. So are there companies that will just allow you to get it? Maybe if you have some type of seniority with them, or do you have to do it that way?
No, you need a medical.
You need to get a medical.
Yeah,
So it
you
has
need a
to, you have to draw, they have to draw blood.
From what I've seen, yes, and from what I've experienced, yes.
Okay.
So the only individuals that are exempt are minors.
Got you. So there are no religious exemptions for that.
Not
That
that I
you're
know.
aware of.
Nope, not that
Okay.
I know.
And then can this also be can a VUL be used instead of a IUL, a variable universal life?
Yeah, you can. So any type of life insurance. So what I want you to know is that any type of life insurance policy can go into the trust, but you, if you want to do this strategy, which is like the infinite banking, private money banking model, typically it is IULs and whole life that it works best with, not a VUL.
Right. It has to be permanent. It can't be like term or something like that.
Right, but what I wanted you to know is that if you have a term life, which a lot of people do, you can put your term life into the trust. But with the term life, as you know, you're not building cash value with that.
Got you. Got you. Okay. I think that is all of my questions. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Mona.
Oh, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
One of my questions was answered, but can
Yeah.
one of your beneficiaries be your assessors?
Can one of them be your sister?
Assessors, like, so if something happened to me, who can be the trustee after me, or do I still be the trustee?
Your successor?
Uh-huh. I'm
Yes.
saying, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
most of my questions was answered through the group chat.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Mona. You're welcome. All right. Next we have G.
Yep. Michelle,
Hi,
Zoom Michelle, there we go.
how are
How you
you?
doing?
Great.
Doing well. How you doing today? We're good. I have a couple of questions here. One, thank you for sharing all this knowledge with us and helping us evade the gatekeepers with all this knowledge you're sharing.
Yes,
Um, my
absolutely. Thank
first
you.
question, my first question is with the faith-based organization. I had asked a question online that said that you could own a PAM account, a Forex. Is that correct?
Yes, it can own any investment. So stocks, foreign
Okay.
exchange,
Okay.
crypto, any kind of
So the
brokerage account.
gains, from that, is that become if it's over 5,000, you have to pay taxes on that?
Yes. So as long as it's considered income, yes. Anything over 5,000 is taxable.
But with it being an investment account, there it would be all considered income, wouldn't it?
Say that again.
With the investment accounts, whether it be stocks or crypto and all that, anything you gain from that would all be considered income, always be considered income. There's no other way to
Well,
consider
it's only if it's actualized. So only if you are actually taking it out and deposited it into the bank account, not if it's
Okay.
sitting there compounding.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then my second question is, my plan is to start a trust that would help me open other trusts. Meaning, I'd be a trustee of a holding company that would be grantor for other trusts. Now, if I'm the trustee of the other trust, would I need a co-trustee on that grantor trust to be with me on there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, because there's going to be a conflict of interest if you're signing as both the grantor and the trustee.
Okay. So in that trust that I'm going to be using as a grantor, it would have to be myself and a co-trustee on there for me to be able to open other trusts with me as a trustee, correct?
Correct.
So they can sign as a grantor. Okay. Okay. Cool. That's all the questions I have. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, next we have Don.
Hey, Christina again. How are you once again?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I am better than terrific as usual. Thank you. Uh,
Um,
I was calling. I'm the one. We was talking earlier about the sole proprietor with
yes.
my business. Yeah, my question to you is, now you mentioned about the LLC. I will have to then apply for an LLC. Then after that, then I will be able to put that LLC into the trust.
So you would do it the other way around. So you would either if you feel like you need an LLC, but if you don't feel like you need an LLC, then you can just establish the business trust and continue to operate your business as a trust versus a sole proprietor. If you feel like you absolutely need an LLC, which a lot of people think that the LLC is the end all be all, but a trust is superior to an LLC, then you would still establish the business trust first and then have the business trust open up the LLC.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Mhm.
That was the only question I had. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Don. All right, any other last questions, comments, concerns? If not, then we are going to adjourn. All right, well, thank you
I
so
did
much for
have some
being.
questions.
Oh, yeah, oh, go for it, Lisa.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I was just wondering if we have heirloom seeds, would that go under a family trust or
I didn't hear the first part. If you have what?
heirloom seeds, from produce and stuff? If you were to have those kinds of seeds, would we
Yeah.
put that under a
So is it personal or is it like a part of like nonprofit activity?
hear me?
Yeah, is it personal or is it nonprofit activity? Like, are you doing any type of farming or anything with it, or is it just personal use?
If it's personal and oh, so if it's for business, I will put it under business, but if it's personal and we're giving it away, then we would put it under our personal and a nonprofit? Or
So if you're giving it away, then that's more for the nonprofit. You would put it under the nonprofit. If you are selling it for profit, it would go under the business, and if it's just for personal use, it would go under the family.
okay. And then the next question I had real quick, the CPA team that you have, are they also pretty much like tax strategists? And that's
Yeah,
why they're okay.
yeah. They are. Yeah, they're tax planners, tax strategists, and they file taxes. They're certified CPAs, yes.
And once we complete one of these programs, would we also need to file all of this under an attorney?
No. So you would just, in order to legalize it, all you have to do is get it notarized and you can start operating it. So in the United States of America, you are able to create your own legal contracts.
Okay, awesome. And then are you going to have another one of these trainings prior to April the 6th through the 10th? Because I have a lot of people I really would like to share, family members especially, but for them to hear this and so that my family and I can get on the same page on trying to do this.
Yes, Miss Lisa. So we do these calls every Wednesday at 7. So we will be available next Wednesday. I think that's the 25th.
Okay. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And I appreciate you wanting to get your family on board as well. That exposure is going to be life-changing for them.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. All right. It looks like Jennifer has a question.
Yes, I do, since a couple of people said some thought-provoking stuff. So, earlier you said that the 5018, the nonprofit, I mean, the tax exempt, um, if you already have a 5013C, is that just as fine to put at, or no?
Just as fine to do what? I don't understand the
To
end of
use
the
it
question.
as a tax exempt, to use it as that third,
Oh, if you would
the
like to,
trust.
if you would like to, it's a legitimate nonprofit, a
Yeah.
501(c)(3. Yeah. Yeah, there's no
Okay.
problem. There's no problem with it. The only difference is that your asset is not protected if you're operating, if you have any, asset associated with it. But that's like, there's a lot of differences, but some people are already operating a nonprofit and they are going to continue to operate what they have in existence.
Okay. And earlier you said that a trust with no limitations are statutes that is recognized in the United States and international. What has to be in place for that to even happen?
I need to understand the question.
So, so some trusts are recognized in certain states and some are not. And you were saying that it's really beneficial to be able to have your trust recognized no matter where you are in international or in the US. In order
Mm-hmm.
to get that, what you would need to do.
Oh, it needs to be inside of the contract. So what I was describing was a non-statutory trust.
Mhm.
So there are no state statutes and codes inside of the contract. So the contract specifies that it is non-statutory and you can operate it. So typically it's operated domestically. It
Mhm.
can be operated in other jurisdictions. It just depends on those jurisdictions.
Gotcha. Okay,
So,
that was those two.
so basically it's the contract itself. What's inside
Mhm.
of it, that is what identifies the type of trust that it is.
Mhm. Got you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, you guys. So just take action on the information that I provided you guys with tonight because it could be your new way of doing business. It could be your new way of protecting your assets. It could be your new way of accumulating wealth. It could be your new way of creating generational wealth on saving on taxes. It could be your new way of solving a lot of your problems and challenges. So you want to be able to not only just sit on the fence with this, but actually take action. Because a lot of people, they'll just come in here, they'll listen, but they won't implement, right? And so it's not only about getting the knowledge, it's about implementing what you have learned. That is what's going to bring you and your family to the next level, to where you are, as I mentioned, you're breaking these generational curses, you're breaking the chains of poverty, and you're changing the trajectory of your life and your kids' life, because now your kids, they're being raised as beneficiaries and future trustees, right? They have actual assets that they are accumulating, that they have full control over, that they are benefiting from, versus the way that you're raising them now, which is how the system has raised us, right? Which is to get a job, go to college, get a career, and retire, on Social Security. So we don't want our children to experience that. So we need to be the ones to take that leap of faith and to take the sacrifices now to establish the estate. So your trust is going to be the foundation. That is what you are going to use in order to establish your legacy. You want to create your legacy now while you're living. You don't want people to remember you, or at least try to remember you, when you're dead and gone. You want to be able to create that now while you're living, so that your great, great, great grandchildren are going to be like, wow, look what grandpa did. Look what grandma did, right? she created this trust, and now it's 5 generations into the future, and 10, 15, 20, 30 assets that have been accumulated, and your entire lineage is financially free because of you. So go ahead and build that legacy intentionally. And me and my team, we're here to assist. So without further ado, I want to say goodnight. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to have another webinar next week, Wednesday at 7. We do have a YouTube channel for those of you guys that are interested in getting more information. There's a lot of free information and content on our YouTube channel. So I will go ahead and put that link inside of the chat. And if you guys can subscribe, we would really appreciate it. And so, so tonight was awesome. You guys have an amazing evening, a great week, and we'll see you next week or on the next workshop. Bye.
Thank you.